Chapter 7. However, Chuck Cannon took out Yvette Jordan's mobile phone, opened her WeChat, and added himself with it. Chuck's current WeChat account was a blank slate with no friends added ever since he opened this account. Yvette would never know it was Chuck's WeChat account. There must have been something wrong with Yvette's training company, otherwise she would not have come here to drink. If she needed money, Chuck would not mind transferring it to her. After helping her accepting his WeChat friend request, Chuck left. Chuck took a shower and wanted to sleep after returning to his room. When dawn broke, he had already checked out early. He had to go to the real estate agency to settle the house procedures today. She tried hard and recalled someone shouting loudly, "Yes, that's it. Someone must have saved her, right? It must be so." Yvette gave a sigh of relief. She put on her clothes and sat on the bed. Sighing again, she decided it was probably time to transfer the ownership of her company to someone else. She didn't want to go through last night's incident again. Ding. Yvette turned on her phone as she received a WeChat message. It was actually a stranger's WeChat account whose name was Baller. Is it really a baller? Are you awake? After seeing this message, Yvette was surprised. This person must have saved her last night and then added her on WeChat. She immediately replied, "Hey, did you save me last night?" "Well, sort of. Thank you. Do I know you?" Yvette asked. "No. You don't have to thank me, but I have to remind you not to stay over with others in a hotel. It's too dangerous. Thank you. There was something wrong with my company. That's why," Yvette replied. The man didn't reply for 20 seconds and Yvette sighed. He probably thought that she was an easy woman, so he ignored her. However, she still thanked him in her heart and wanted to see this man. Yvette put down her mobile phone, but ding! The baller transferred $100,000. Yvette was dumbfounded. This guy actually transferred $100,000 to me. She was stunned and replied in a hurry, "What are you doing, baller? Isn't your company facing difficulties? Then I will transfer the money to you so you don't have to drink with others anymore." Yvette double-confirmed that she did not mistakenly read the message. She took a deep breath and replied, "Thank you, baller, but you saved me last night and I haven't even thanked you. How can I take your money?" The other party did not respond, but 10 seconds, the baller transferred $100,000. Again, Yvette was completely shocked. Is this guy really a baller? If so, when did she ever know a guy like this? Yvette felt puzzled and clicked on his profile. She wanted to see his album, but she didn't find anything. Who was this guy? "Thank you, but really it's fine. I will solve my own problems," Yvette finally replied after some thinking. This man gave her $200,000 out of sudden. She couldn't accept it, and she didn't dare to accept it. "Well, if you're in trouble, you can contact me." Seeing the message, Yvette put down the phone in bewilderment after replying a thanks. Who is this guy? Why is he helping her? She was full of doubts. She thought about it for a while and decided to sell out her own house. She could buy a smaller house and use the remaining money to see if she could revive her training company. After all, she only managed to buy her current house and car thanks to the money earned by this training company. She would not be contented to give up just like this. She made up her mind to pack up her things and check out. Then she would contact the real estate agency to sell her house. Chuck looked at his mobile phone and gave a wry smile. Yvette didn't accept the money transferred to her. At least he finally managed to become friends with Yvette, and even managed to chat with her so casually. Unfortunately, it was not a face-to-face conversation. Chuck thought to himself, if Yvette was really facing problems, she would definitely ask him for help. Then he could help her. Soon he got to the real estate agency. When the employee saw Chuck coming over, he immediately served him tea and gave him a seat. He had made a lot of money this month. Chuck was definitely his god of prosperity. "Mr. Cannon, please wait for a moment. The owner will come soon," the employee said politely. Chuck nodded. There was nothing to worry about. After all, it was almost the holidays and there was no class this morning. However, after playing with his mobile phone for a while, he suddenly saw Yvette's car at the door. He was shocked. No way was WeChat already so high-tech for her to be able to track him down? Don't panic, it's impossible. But why is Yvette here? Is she selling her house? Chuck took a deep breath and hurriedly said that he needed to go to the washroom before dashing inside. He carefully looked out and saw Yvette coming in with a bag. The other employees immediately served her politely. Her clothes were not cheap, so everyone could see that Yvette had purchasing power. With only a few words, the employee had Yvette sign some documents before driving off in her car. Chuck walked out and asked, what was the pretty lady doing? She wanted to sell her house. He was speechless. Was Yvette really selling her house? Is her company facing that much hardship? They didn't talk much before, so Chuck naturally didn't know her situation. He didn't expect it to be like this. Soon, the owner of the house that Chuck wanted to buy dropped by. He went out with the real estate middleman to complete some paperwork documents until late afternoon. Finally, Chuck had his own house. Mind him, a few days ago he was still fretting over what to eat, but now it felt so good having a baller as a mom. Back at the agency, Chuck asked the staff who had just returned from Yvette's house. The staff said the pretty lady just now was selling her house. 3 rooms, 130 square meters. According to market price, it would cost about $1.2 million. She said that if she could be paid all the money at once, there could be a discount up to $50,000. That means it can be taken care of with $1.2 million. Chuck's eyes flashed. Are you interested, Mr. Cannon? The employee's eyes lit up. It was not a big deal for a person who could pay up $3 million at once to buy another house. Wait, I'll make a phone call and ask. Chuck took out his mobile phone to call his mother, and it was quickly connected. Chucky. Mom, I still want some money, he said. Okay, Mom will transfer you $10 million now, his mother chuckled. Mom, I'm using it to buy a house. I didn't have enough money, so that why, Chuck explained hesitantly. No need to give any reasons. If my son wants to spend money, just spend it. Remember, I'm your mom. I'll give you as much as you want. Chuck's eyes reddened. He never felt the warmth of parents since young, but now that he had, Chuck felt warm inside. Although it was normal for moms to be like this, he still felt like he was dreaming. Thank you, Mom. Silly child. I'll transfer it to you now. The call ended in less than 10 minutes. Chuck received a message on his mobile phone, indicating that he had just received $10 million. Together with the remaining money in his account, he now had about $11.3 million. Chuck took a deep breath and walked up to the employee before announcing, Call her now and say that someone wants to buy her house. Chapter 8. What? Someone wants to buy my house so soon? And it's going to be paid in full? Yvette Jordan was stunned after receiving the phone call from the real estate agency. Isn't it too fast? The news was just released in the morning. Yes, a gentleman has taken a fancy to your house. If it's convenient for you, please drop by so we can finish up the transfer procedure tomorrow, the agent said. Yvette felt like she received a gift from heaven. Despite repeated confirmation, she was surprised. Her house was really sold in one morning. When she bought this house, she only bought it for $6,000. In just one morning, she had already made hundreds of thousands of dollars. She thought that it would take at least a month to sell the house, but she didn't expect it to be sold so fast. Okay, please take the buyer to the real estate bureau tomorrow. I'll meet you there, Yvette said. No problem. See you tomorrow morning. Seeing the real estate agency hanging up the phone, Chuck Cannon breathed a sigh of relief. What did she say? Very pleased, the agent smiled and said. He was even more polite to Chuck. Chuck, who looked extremely normal and low-profiled, had bought 2 houses in his agency in 2 days. He would be a big customer in the future, so he couldn't afford to offend him. That's great. Please help me complete the transfer procedure tomorrow, Chuck replied. He couldn't let Yvette know that he was the one who bought her house, or she might not want to sell it. Mr. Cannon, this transfer has to be done by yourself. The agent was surprised because he had never encountered such a request before. Please replace me. I will give you the money tomorrow. You can transfer the house under your name first and then transfer it to me, Chuck said. The agent was stunned. Was there such a way? However, he would receive a lot of commission after selling this house, so it was worth going through the troublesome matters. No problem, I'll call you tomorrow morning, the agent said. Okay. Chuck gave him a deposit of $100,000 and went out. Mr. Cannon is really rich. After Chuck left, several agents expressed their envy. Yes, although Mr. Cannon wears cheap clothes and looks like a loser, he is generous. He spent more than $5 million to buy houses at once. His assets should be more than $50 million. That many? He's still a student at this age, isn't he? Student? He's obviously a rich kid, isn't he? I really can't see that. A rich kid's so low-key now. Who knows? Chuck was waiting for a taxi while his mind was wandering. How would Yvette react if she knew he was the one who bought her house? Maybe she would be surprised. Maybe. Chuck shook his head. Now he was ready to go to the furniture store to buy some furniture. After all, the house had been transferred today, but the original owners had moved out with their furniture. Fortunately, no renovation was needed as the house was still relatively new, so he could just buy some furniture and move in. However, Chuck felt that it was troublesome to go back and forth, and thus thought of buying a car. It felt so different when he had money. He could change his mind whenever he wanted. He took a taxi to the Forest automobile store. After attaining his driving license for a few months, he had already thought of buying a BMW. Now, of course, he was heading straight to the BMW 4S automobile store. However, Chuck was not dressed attractive enough to get the attention of the staff in the store. They glanced at him a few times and their eyes were full of disdain. Nobody bothered to greet him at all. They were guessing that this person came in just to have a look around the cars for fun. Chuck took a fancy to a big BMW, but he didn't know what it was called. Thinking that it belonged to a certain series, he walked over and saw a saleswoman. Chuck asked, "Hello, what car is this? How much is it?" The saleswoman looked at Chuck with distaste. She didn't want to talk to him at all and just walked away with no intention of responding to him. This poor loser was asking her the price of the car, although he didn't even know what its name was. Chuck was a little distraught and could only try to open the car door and take a look inside himself. However, he felt awkward as that door was locked, so he could only have a look outside. The manager of this store glanced at Chuck and asked the intern, Charlotte Yates, to come over. "Manager, you called me?" Charlotte greeted him cautiously. The manager pointed to Chuck, who was examining the car. "Go serve the man who just walked in. This sort of person is just taking a look at cars. They will never have the ability to buy the cars. You can practice serving him so that your communication skills can improve. After all, we can't let you, an intern, to greet guests with the ability to purchase cars. It's best to practice on such a person with no money, as it won't cause any loss to the store. Go." "Yes, manager." Oh. Charlotte calmed herself down and walked over. The manager reminded her, "Remember, be careful and don't let him touch anything. He can't afford to compensate if he leaves some scratches on the cars." "Yes, manager, I know." Charlotte nodded and walked over to Chuck with a smile. The manager and the other salesmen were too lazy to bother. They didn't even pay attention at Chuck, who looked like the shameless type of person who would enter the store to check out the cars but not buy anything. "Hello, are you interested in this car?" Charlotte smiled and asked in a sweet voice. "Yes, which series is this car from?" Chuck breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, someone paid attention to him. "Yes, this is the luxurious version of the BMW 7 Series. Wheelbase." Charlotte was about to introduce the details of the car as practiced, but before she could finish her sentence, Chuck interrupted her and asked directly, "How much is it?" Charlotte was stunned momentarily. "Well, this is the top car of the BMW 7 Series. It costs $2,480,000. Okay, I'll take it. Do you have any available cars in stock?" Chuck asked. What did you say?" Charlotte Yates was stunned. "I said I've made up my mind." "Is there any of it available currently?" Chuck repeated weakly. Didn't he seem like he was going to buy a car? "Are you sure?" Charlotte subconsciously rose her voice, which immediately attracted the other salespeople in the store. What happened? Could it be this guy damaged the car? Their salesmen all looked at them. The manager frowned and could only walk over, muttering unhappily under his breath. "I told her to be careful. Why did she let this kid touch the car? Can he even afford to pay for the damages? Sigh. What's wrong?" The manager tried his best to remain calm. If Chuck had no money, he would immediately call the police. "Manager, this gentleman here said he wanted to order this car," Charlotte said in a daze. She couldn't come back to her senses. The manager was stunned, his eyebrows knotting themselves further. Not a bit glad, he examined Chuck from head to toe for a few times. Unsatisfied, although he had let this person come in to take a look and even trying to make a joke, he was unhappy as he thought that this had gotten too far. What? Did I hear it right? This guy, dressed in drags, has the money to buy a BMW. What's more, a BMW of the very highest caliber. I think he'd better to buy a bicycle. That's right. Doesn't he feel embarrassed when he hears this price? The other salesmen all sneered. They had seen too many people like Chuck just simply claiming to buy it. They wouldn't be surprised if he tried to find an excuse to leave later. Sir, are you kidding? The manager was impatient. He wanted to throw Chuck out. Chuck looked at him, took out his card, and gave it directly to Charlotte. Do you have ready available stock? Yes, Charlotte nodded in reflex. Then I'll buy it. Swipe my card. Chuck replied calmly. Charlotte was really confused. This was her first day at work, and she didn't know how to deal with it, so she could only ask the manager, "What should I do?" Since he wants to buy it, then swipe his card. Currently, this car has a discount of $30,000. Since he has money, then he can pay $2,450,000. The manager sneered. He couldn't understand why Chuck had the courage to present his credit card after asking about the price of the BMW. Will he feel embarrassed of himself only when the machine states that there is insufficient amount in his bank account? Well, since you're so pretentious, let reality give you a big slap in the face then. He had been in the car business for so many years, and he had never seen anyone enter a BMW store to buy a car and clothes that cost less than $100. Chuck was definitely the first one. The manager sneered and said, "Go and swipe it." Charlotte brought Chuck's card over to the counter in a daze. She didn't want to issue an invoice first and directly swipe the card. It's the first time that I've seen such a person. This kid must be playing truth or dare. Me neither. Will he feel embarrassed if the card can't be used later? I don't think so. He's so thick-skinned. Why would he feel embarrassed? The salesman at the scene laughed mockingly while the manager glared at Chuck. He waited for Charlotte to inform him that the balance of this card was insufficient. In less than 30 seconds, Charlotte trotted over. The manager glanced at her and said, "Return him the card and ask him to get out." "No, manager," Charlotte replied breathlessly. "Manager, his bill was paid. That $2,450,000 has been paid."